welcome to the Transfer Exchange Show. We are like,
what are you
sorry.
laughing at?
I'm sorry.
Get it off your chest now.
I'm going. See you later.
He's just got to land the plane. It's all right.
I was all right.
He's doing the Heathrow to JFK. It's just he's going a bit turbulent at the moment.
Welcome to the Transfer Exchange Show. My apologies. I was all right until Steve told me a story about him walking through the living room and the whole family laughing at his headphones.
He's got short sleeves on as well, like the pilot. So he looks
We're now ready for takeoff.
Good.
And Steve K is your pilot, my co-host. How you doing, Steve? Nice to welcome you back.
Yeah, I'm great. Absolutely great. The missus just actually ripped my debit card to pieces on Christmas shopping and come in here and now get ripped by me mates.
Well, you should get some earphones.
Yeah.
I'm just going to buy some new headphones.
They're ones from 1975.
Air traffic control want theirs back. But anyway, we are joined by former Newcastle and England fullback Warren Barton. How you doing, Warren?
I'm very well, thank you. Very, very good. Thanks for having us on, fellas.
No worries.
Just the opening bit. It's been worth it just for this bit. It's been
it has been. I'm sweating. And of course, we've got Nathan Ellington in the room. How you doing, Nathan?
Good. Really good.
All right.
Can't wait
All
for
right.
this.
Let's get this underway. Warren, we're gonna talk about some of your past career and present. Obviously, your love Newcastle. We're going to talk about how they're getting on at the moment. But let's start. You started your career at Dagenham and then moved on to Maidstone before joining the Crazy Gang. Was your education in non-league? Did it help when you joined Wimbledon?
Yeah, I think no doubt. Playing non-league football like Vardy's done that before. Peter Beardsley, Chris Waddle, Stuart Pearce, and obviously, the Crazy Gang, Vinnie Jones, all come through the lower leagues. I think it grounds you, being told twice as a young boy, you're not going to make it at Leyton Orient, you're too small. And then to go into a changing room with a builder, electrician, a wheeler and dealer, if you don't produce the goods and you don't get the bonus, they're definitely going to let you know. So it was a great grounding for me. People like Terry Hurlock as well. I'm a little bit older than you fellas, but Terry had come through non-league and proper people. People that run the club and look after the club, that doing it for nothing. And I think that's when people saying about COVID and the Premier League and the money and the pyramid. The non-league clubs give so much to everybody, local community. So to play for a team like Dagenham and Redbridge or Leytonstone Ilford, it was at the time. Mm-hmm. And then get the opportunity to go to Maidstone, who had just got promotion from the old into the old football league, the 4th division, from non-league, and players that was earning good money, as well as non-league money. I got transferred for 4 players and a manager, John Steele, who was actually at Maidstone. He went to Dagenham, and I went the other way with Keith Peacock and Tommy Taylor at the Maidstone, and I had 10 months in the old 4th division. Played against Dion Dublin in the playoffs for Cambridge United. Mm-hmm. They made the playoffs. We unfortunately didn't, Maidstone. But then I got a phone call on the Monday that Wimbledon had come in at the time. £300,000 for a non-league player was a record at that time. And they just finished the FA Cup. They're just probably the biggest underdog story in football now, beating the mighty Liverpool with Lois Sanchez getting the winning goal and Dave Besant saving the penalty from John Aldridge. Get the opportunity to play at Wimbledon at Player Lane, but it all had that that background of non-league. A lot of the players have come through lower leagues, sticking together. Yeah. Maybe we didn't have the ability of the likes of Arsenal at the time and Liverpool, Man United. But one thing we had was spirit and togetherness. And when you had the likes of, as I said, John Fashanu, Vinnie Jones behind you, Robbie Earle, John Scales, Dean Holsworth, Keith Cole, Terry Phelan. Some people won't recognise these names, but at the time, they was good players and good characters, and we looked after each other as well. So it was a great learning curve for me, non-league, to put me into the Premier League. And Wimbledon was probably ideal to be in that mentality, because against all odds, we always finished in the top 10. We'd go and beat Man United at Old Trafford. We'd beat Liverpool. We respected teams, but we didn't fear anybody. Probably couldn't get away with a lot of things we can do now with VAR and cameras down the tunnel.
No.
we had a good go doing it, but we won a lot of the games actually in the tunnel when you had the last, as I said, with Fashion and Vinny looking after you. And I was at the back going, yeah, it was that one. Go on, give it to me. It was like as I hitting someone like that, I thought, oh, that must hurt. But, it was fun. It was fun.
How crazy was it? They say the crazy gang. A lot of the younger viewers won't know. Obviously, we're trying to keep it PG, but how crazy was it playing for them and the atmosphere around the team?
Well, I've only met you gentlemen about 5 or 6 minutes, but I think you would have loved it because, as I said, there was lots of antics going on. It was all about sense of humour. It's about banter, setting people's clothes on fire when they first signed for the club. That was your initiation test. When I got selected for England, my pride and joy at the time was a convertible Saab, and I thought, wow, that's it. That's the car of my dreams. Go and have training session, come back, and all my tyres have been slashed. So I go into the change room. I'm like, fellas, you're out of order. Do you know what I mean? It's my pride and joy. Vinny, you shouldn't. I never did that. Fash, why'd you do it? I never did. It was the owner, Sam, the man. He's the one that's doing it. So that's your
no way.
So what chance have you got? So from being selected, and things like we'd get a journalist come down who may be in the local media saying, "Oh, Wimbledon, it's long ball, they're this," and we'd invite him down and say, "Look, please come and get to know the lads." Vinny would get his PR people come down. Anyone that knows where we used to train just off the A3, you'd go round to like a little memorial, like a little bushes, and we'd take the journalist round the back of the bushes, strip him, beat him up, and drag him for a tunnel. So that was the test, and sunk or swim. So but it was, as I said, a lot of things. Another guy, one of the players, I won't name him because he's still around, but at that time, you probably remember like council tax. People wasn't paying their council tax at the time. So he would have people come down with their grey suits and their binders to try and get his name and get the money off of him. We hid him in the back of his car. But little did he know, because they was pulling in and someone would say, "Oh, there's people coming from the council, they're coming in." He would run in the back of his car around the back of the training ground. We locked him in there for 3 hours. He didn't realise. He thought he was going to come training as a bit of fun. He didn't realise he was claustrophobic. So we left him in there for 3 hours. So needless to say, that weren't good for his mental preparation.
Oh my gosh!
But it was fun.
That reminds me.
As I said, there was things that we did that you maybe couldn't get away with. But what it did, it brought us together on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Wednesday when we was playing, and some great characters, some good people. And we still have WhatsApp now with all the boys, the Wimbledon boys, and every Christmas if we're in town, there's about 18, 20 of us. And we all just either meet up and have a Christmas drink. And no one says a word. For the first probably 2 hours, everyone's just laughing. How people are, do you remember this? And you don't even finish a story. It's like, remember when we did this? And do you remember? And, it's great. It's great to reminisce and to look back, because it was so, like the Crazy Gang, it sort of speaks for itself. We was all a little bit eccentric and crazy, but we was a gang that looked after each other and stuck together. And whether it was Dennis Wise and Vinny winning the FA Cup, or later on, myself, Dean Holdsworth, John Scales going forward with Robbie Earl, we'd all stick together. Marcus Gale was there, Ben Thatcher. We'd all stick together and have a good time.
You know what? I got to mention, because obviously there's the reason why I was a bit scared to come to Wimbledon at the time. I was playing non-league, and they're the stories I heard, and I was told, listen, you want to go there at YTS for £42 a week. I was like, what down there, the Crazy Gang, all them guys are going to do. I don't know what they're going to do to me. I don't want to go down there.
Well, you would have loved it. You would have loved it. For the first week, you might have found it a challenge, but you wouldn't have got the £42 a week after. We would have took that off you.
Was there someone that was picked on all the time, Warren? Was there someone who was picked a regular pick on?
No, I mean, John Scales was always one, because he was from Harrogate. He's very intelligent. He went to a private school, and he was a good-looking fella. But Scales, we used to call him John Inman. Anyone that remembers the programme, so it was John Inman. We'd fluff his hair up and beat him up a little bit, but it was Scalesy, No, I mean, Terry Phelan would look after himself, the little rat. He was running around. Everyone. It wasn't again picking on anyone. It was like I'll tell you a quick story. We had Kenny Cunningham, the Irish international, come over from Millwall with John Goodman. Kenny's a lovely fella, Southern Ireland, great fella, but really, really quiet. So he comes in. First thing we do, signs, got the Wimbledon shirt, signs in, right, straight away, cut his clothes up. That's done straight away. That's the first thing done. Comes in the next day, you know, he weren't a good dresser, typical Irish Paddy, so he's there, so we cut all his trads up again. So then we play at home the next game. I forget who it was, maybe Spurs or whoever. We're playing at home. His girlfriend or wife now at the time comes over to the boys. We'll just stand there with the girlfriend's wives, whoever it was, maybe at the time. Don't do that to my Kenny. You're out of order. You know, that's his suits, and we'll look at each other.
Oh no!
Roll on Monday morning because it's going to happen again. So for the next 3 weeks, the home games that we had, Kenny would come. He loved his ties, and his wife always got these ties. They was awful, like paisley ties. So every time we're coming, they'd be cutting that. See, Kenny was good company. So Kenny would walk in with like the tie cut, and she kept on moaning. She kept on going, and it wasn't until like the 3rd or 4th week she realised I better just leave it because he's not going to have
make it worse.
He's never going to have any clothes there.
Making it worse.
You know, Kenny was one of them that we went after, but as I said, he weren't really into his fashion, so it sort of softened it a little bit because you want
done him a favour.
You done him a favour. Actually, it was better cutting it up than having it as it was.
So you say that Wimbledon were there, that they're rugged, they were accused of playing long ball, but were there players in your team that you thought were very underrated?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I think there was some really good players. You know, obviously Robbie Earl comes to mind. He was one player that stayed there because a lot of us, like John Scales, went to Liverpool. Keith Curl, and obviously Terry Phelan went to Man City. I went to Newcastle. Dean Holdsworth went to Bolton. Marcus Gale was a good player as well. But you know, Wimbledon, really good, you know, was starting to pay some money, and Robbie had been there a long time. Obviously Neil Sullivan had then gone off to Spurs. Chris Perry. But yeah, there were some really good players.
Played with Chris Perry.
Yeah, he played with Chris. Yeah.
Oh,
Plus, the Rash. He was there.
Yeah.
So there was some, as I said, some good players. A lot of players moved on. It lost a bit of its identity when the Norwegian owners come in and Sam left. They wanted to be a little bit different, and it didn't really happen. But yeah, there's some very good players down there. You know, as I said, Neil Ardley was a good player. Peter Fear. You know, there's some good young players down there, and they must have been well because they survived in the Premier League. Not survived, they thrived in the Premier League really for a number of years. It wasn't until they went a little bit Norwegian and tried to change the style of football, and it sort of backfired a little bit on them.
He was there when they was at Selhurst Park, right? When
I was at Plough Lane when we first went there, and it's great for the club to be back there now. And then we transferred over to Selhurst Park for the last 4 years of my time over there, which is probably the worst ground to get away from. Plough Lane's bad, but it was.
That's where I live by, so that's why I remember. I lived by Hayden's Road, so you know Hayden's Road in South Wimbledon, and where the shopping centre is.
When we played, it wasn't too bad because we'd only get about 3,000 or 4,000 people there. So it was only when we played Man United, it was a sellout with all the Liverpool fans, Man United and Arsenal. But you know, it was a good time. It was a good time, and they had to do that to move across. And you know, with the Crystal Palace lads at the time, you know, Brighty, Ian Wright, Jeff Thomas, Andy Gray, we had that little bit of rivalry as well. So you know, they could look after themselves as well, that lot. So it was always good games against them.
Warren, do you know when? Sorry, mate. Go on, Nath.
No, I was just saying how crazy is that. He's mentioning people like Andy Gray and Tony Finnegan. They were my agents. So
Tony Finnegan. Yeah, those are My next question: did they look after you?
Yeah, they did. They're really good. Really good. They would, yeah.
It's only because you're scared of them.
Probably, yeah. No, what I just wanted to ask, Warren, is I think you never finished under middle table, did you? When you was at Wimbledon, you know, 10th, 11th, round about that. I mean, when you come. I mean, we all like that. Wimbledon were perceived to play as a certain way, hence the name that was given the Crazy Gang. But when you come up against the top sides, I mean, you got some fantastic results against them. Did you play any different? Did you change anything, or did you just go out there and play the same way every single week?
No, we had a style of playing. You know, we would. I mean, our pre-seasons we was obviously very athletic. We were strong. We would compete, and we'd probably overrun teams. And you know, if we was any danger, it was like a system. You could play into midfield. We'd roll it round the corner. and Dean and Fash or Marcus Gale, they would know that they was already on their way. So, defenders wanted to get the ball. We'd already turned them and got in behind. But we also knew if we was in trouble, we were going to get rid of it. All this passing out from the back. And we could play, don't get me wrong. We if it was there to play a ball. But a lot of it is like, I knew I'd roll it into Robbie O and he'd flick it around the corner. And Fash and Dean, as I said, they'd already gone. Or we'd do a ball that, might go out to Alan Corker, who'd roll it back to me. And I was never going to take 3 or 4 touches. I was going to whip it in first time. And Robbie would make his run from the edge of the box and got over 100 goals doing it. So, there was a system to how we played. The academy did that, with Terry Burton, who we had there. And then it went on from, the first team players would do it. So, and then they looked at players that was hungry and athletic and that was strong to do well and had good character. So, there was a formula, but we knew that if we had to mix it up a little bit, we would do. With all due respect, there's no point giving the ball to Vinny as a number 6 and he's not going to spray it around. But what he can do is maybe hit a diagonal or hit it in the corner for someone that's already made a run. If Gally would come inside and maybe Ben Thatcher would already be doing the overlap. So we worked a lot of that on the training ground. And also when we got into areas, like I've said, the players that we had, we could play, but there was a method to what we did. We knew teams was expecting it. And the main thing we said is don't disappoint them. Don't, they'd be waiting. The Southampton, Norwich's, the other teams, Coventry's would all be, we're playing, we want to get we'd make it uncomfortable for them and win them games. And the biggest compliment I think we got with Sir Alex Ferguson is when they beat us at Selhurst Park. It was a cold Tuesday night. They come down there and Cantona scored, and he put it in his book. He said he knew when we didn't, we being Wimbledon, wasn't intimidated by, Man United wasn't intimidated by Wimbledon, that they'd win the title. So that's a big compliment. When you looked at definitely. That team, you had Cantona, Hughes, Dennis Irwin, Paul Ince, Roy would just be getting in the team, Pallister, as I said, Paul Parker was playing, Schmeichel and Bruce. Once they knew they weren't going to get intimidated by us, he knew they'd win it. My biggest problem, I'd start off against Lee Sharp and do well for about an hour. Next thing, he bring on Ryan Giggs. Any danger? That was all part of the system that we played and the method. And we play to our strengths. And I think that's what we try and do now.
Yeah,
exactly.
The team you joined when you joined to Newcastle was a very different team to the team when you left Newcastle. Who were some of the best players you played with while you was there?
Oh well, it was going from the crazy gang to the entertainers. It was a dream, really. And I left there to try and win things and challenge things and try and play in cup finals, play in the Champions League, play for England, etc., etc. So, Peter Beardsley comes to mind as one of the most gifted players that you had. And the way he played, the way he played is the way he trained. And sometimes in training, some players, just go through the motions a little bit. But Pedro was like that on the field. Ginola, when he played,
that touch turn that he did.
He ruined enough people's careers doing that. Richard Airfield, Curtis Fleming, and people like that. I mean, even the likes of Gary Neville and Lee Dixon, that was top class defenders playing in good teams. Ginola would terrorise them. Tino Asprilla was fun to play with.
What a player!
But he was good off the field. And with all due respect, you can't go wrong when you have Celez up front and Alan Shearer. You got them type of players. Les was arguably one of the best aerial threats you've ever seen, and he got 50 goals in 2 years, and he was loved up there. And Al was just a different breed. He was just a goal scoring machine, and when you see the way he used to train, the way he looked after, and he had 2 big injuries, his ACL and dislocated his ankle against Ajax to come back and play. And then with all, it's a little bit flippant, but it shouldn't be. But you throw a Gary Speed into that and a Shay Gibbon and a Rob Lee.
Rob Lee.
Yeah, phenomenal players. And I know they go under a little bit of the radar, but when Roy Keane come out and said that the hardest midfield that he'd ever played against was Speedo, Rob, or David Batty, and I was lucky to play with. And then one of the best to play with at the back was Philip Albert. Everybody remembers that goal he scored against
United.
Why do you have to say that?
He was one of the first centre halves really that would come out and play with and play little combinations and then spray it or chip at the outside of his left foot out the Ginola. So yeah, it was a pleasure. And then you put on top of that the fans, the area, the people, the kit, the grandad collars, the different style. It was just an iconic moment for the Premier League, and to be part of all that and be involved in it was obviously an honour. And it changed. You're right. Towards the end, Sir Bobby Robson come in. I had 3.5, 4 years with Sir Bobby, but then we brought in Kieran Dyer, Craig Bellamy, Lauren Rubert. These type of players. Jonathan Woodgate started to come in. Jermaine Genius. We got older and they got younger. And he's managed to get us back into the Champions League again. So it was just a pure honour and a joy to be there because, as I said, I had a chance to go to Arsenal. I spoke to David Dean, spoke to Celtic, spoke to Man City, Sheffield Wednesday, but I spoke to Kevin Keegan and he said, come and join a big club. And it's, arguably the happiest years of my life because it was, as I said, competing every week, 52,000 people supporting you, pushing you on. It can be tough sometimes, but it was, play over 220 games for that lot was an honour.
How was it specifically in that time with the Kevin Keegan and the Alex Ferguson duels, the infamous interview, and just being in that team because I feel like you were the neutrals' favourites. Like I'm an Arsenal fan, but at that time I still had posters of Ginola, Aspria, and just because I just loved Newcastle as a team because you enjoyed watching them, and then when they beat Man United, it was like, this is definitely a team that I like. So what was it like just being around that and being involved in that?
It was exciting. It was breathtaking and a little bit surreal. Sometimes when you're involved in it so much, you sort of get a little bit cocooned. And I touched on being at Wimbledon, we played Bolton Wanderers at home or Southampton. There'd be about 3,000 or 4,000 people there. We would train at a place called England and Newcastle in Durham in Newcastle. There'd be 5,000 to 6,000 people watching you train. Kevin Keegan would be sitting on top of the hamburger stall having a cup of tea with Terry McDermott, watching us train. And it was a bit surreal being part of that. And you're right, because of the tag, the entertainers, we was always like box office on a Sunday or a Monday night. And United would play on a Saturday, beat Southampton 1-0. Smike will do great. Cantona would get a goal. And then we'd have the pressure was on it. It was all like, let's go and watch it. The fans was great. The atmosphere, to be involved in it, it was wonderful. And I can honestly say, maybe coming from non-league made me realise, but I appreciated it every single day. Like driving in the car with Soles, David, Ginola, Shaka, his lot, getting out, and it's taking you 25 minutes before you get into the change room because you're signing autographs, having pictures. And it was ingrained. You had to do that. You couldn't just get in your car and slip away. It was part and parcel of being up there. And then obviously with Sir Bobby coming along, it was the same expectations and hype was there.
Managers.
Yeah. And Dalglish, into cup finals. It was a little bit slippery with Ruud Gullit. Rude is rude. If it ain't Dutch, it ain't much. So it didn't really work out.
The sexy football.
The sexy football.
Not dropping Alan Shearer. You're never going to last.
No.
You would have thought he would suit Ruud Gullit, wouldn't you? Though the entertainers, someone like Newcastle, you would have thought he would have hit it off.
You would have thought so. And listen, Ruud's a magnificent player, and when he was at Chelsea, and the quick story about when he left Alan out. Me and Gary went into Ruud's office and said, look, if you're going to leave it out, you're going to have to tell him. You can't just, he's our captain. You can't just not tell him and give it to Steve Clarke to go and do. At least you can do is be man enough to tell him. And, Ruud's line was, well, no one ever told me. So I went, with all due respect, Ruud, you was European Player of the Year twice. Yeah. So no one ever told you was being dropped at AC Milan. He went, well, that's what it is. And, we get beat by Sunderland and 6 o'clock a.m. Ruud's on the flight on the way back to Holland, and Big Duncan and Alan were waiting outside his office at 7:30 in the morning. And thankfully for Ruud, you weren't there because I think they would have beat the shit out of him. He got out of there a little bit lively, so he's on the first KLM back to Amsterdam.
Oh my God!
As when you spoke to him about football and about the game, Ruud had so much knowledge. His biggest problem is man management. He just couldn't relay that because he was such a big star. And unfortunately for him, like I said to him, there's not many times you got told you was never going to play. And as a manager, you have to understand that.
Can you pick someone? Sorry, mate. Can you pick someone that you enjoy playing for the most, Warren?
That's Bobby. Yeah. So without a doubt,
Bobby,
Kevin was great. Ray Hartford at Wimbledon when I first went there really educated me about thinking about being a player, about not just playing the game but thinking about what you're doing. So Ray was really, really good in that respect. Kevin Keegan was wonderful when it was going well. You couldn't wish for everything was easy, everything was fun, everything was out there. Couldn't do enough for you. If your wife needed tickets, getting my family up from London, he'd go and get first class tickets, bring them up. Things like that. When it went a bit rocky, he couldn't handle it. But Bobby, as a package, his tactics, media, man management, knowing the game man management as well. When you listen to Pep, I can hear a little bit of Bobby about him, about in the game, changing things and getting. You can hear a little bit of Bobby in him, and he had that influence on him. Mourinho as well is obviously with Sir Bobby as well. But just as a going in life, and I want to get back into coaching. I want to try and coach. I come to America 13 years ago to be with my family and coach my kids. But going into when I go into coaching, there's a lot of things that I learned from Bobby, how to be with people, how to think about the game, how to think about the way you treat people, how to think about the situation in the game when you're going to have to change things. So he was very, very instrumental in me. I've done my pro license, A license, and Bobby was a big part of that. There's certain managers that you take certain things off, and he's one of them. And also to be a person, again, talking about Selhurst Park, I always tell this story. Like we'd lost, I think we lost the game or drew the game. We did play very well. We're supposed to be getting a flight back to Newcastle. Bobby spent 35 minutes speaking to the steward that used to get you off the bus to go into the changing room. He spent 45 minutes, 25 minutes speaking to him about the game, life, his kids. It's like, Gaffer, we need to go. We're missing our flight. But he went, I'm talking. I'm not walking away. I'm like, fucking hell, Gaffer, And that was Bobby. That was Bobby, and that's how he was. And I think that's when you look at the way he handles someone like Paul Gascoigne to a Tony Adams. Two totally different people, but he got the best out of both of them. He was a big part of that. Terry Venables was great as well. I was lucky enough to be with Terry just before Euro '96, but nowhere near like Bobby. Bobby for me was the best.
Yeah, wonderful man.
If you had a podcast, he'd be on it for about 3 hours. You couldn't get on.
Where'd that be on?
You'd be saying, listen, I've got to pay another 30 quid to keep going. But that's just with Bobby.
That's good. What's the best tip you learned off of Bobby Robson that you can take into your managerial career now?
Trust. You've got to trust people. Trust your players, trust people around. And it's quite ironic. Bobby would be like that and treat everyone a little bit different because they are like your kids. That was another thing. But I was lucky enough when I was working with Fox. We went out to Madrid for Champions League. It was Mourinho's Real Madrid against Sir Alex Ferguson's Man United team. Remember when Cristiano Ronaldo scored the header for Real Madrid, the far post? He got about 8 foot up in the air, and then in it, we was lucky enough to go and meet Sir Alex. And not obviously, because it sounds a bit. I'd played against Sir Alex and had conversations, and with Sir Bobby, we'd been at different golf events. But he invited us to lunch before the game. The game was on a Tuesday night, so we went there Tuesday just before lunch. All the players were there. Then they disappeared, and he had us at the table. And the first thing he said, I said, Sir Alex, don't mind me asking. I had the same conversation with Bobby, and I love picking your brains. If you could give me advice, what would it be? And the first thing he said, you've got to trust your players, and you've got to trust the people around you. And if it come from Sir Bobby, and then obviously you get into the nitty gritty and what you have to do. And I said, you've got a knack of getting rid of players when everyone thinks you're silly. But he said, you just know once they start demanding or they expect, get them out. And he said, I've made a mistake, Yap stamp, obviously, but you've got to realise when they start coming more important than the team is when you've got to get rid of them. And when you think back to what he did with Roy Keane, with Ben, that you think, I've got it now. Because at the time, it's like, how can you get rid of Roy Keane? He's driving. But he knew it was the right time. And I've had, lucky enough I worked with the FA for a while and Arsene Wenger as a football brain to pick the ideas off of his biggest statement that he made. Give me an athlete, I'll make him into a player. And that's how the game's changed. So there's to pick out your brains out for them 3 and to sit down and you want to try and put that across. But definitely that one, the trust factor. You've got to trust players. And listen, I've been coaching academy and coaching my kids, so it's not, but it's coaching, and I've done it, and it does materialize in a game. Like, trust your players in a certain moment. Like when we played at Wimbledon, we'd be up against it, but I knew I could trust like Robbie, Dino, and like the same with when I was playing for Newcastle. I knew I could trust Speedo. I could trust him, and if you have that, I'll give it to Nobby. And he knew to give me the ball, Nobby Solano. I knew that if I'd make the run, it might take me 5, but I trusted him that he'd give it to me at the right time, and he would do it. And that's something that you live and die by, because you've got to have that trust as well.
Yeah. Another quality player you mentioned there, Nobby Solano. Don't get spoken about much.
He could drink as well, Nobby, and play the trumpet. Drink and play the trumpet at the same time. That's a talent.
That is a talent. Yeah.
Another player you mentioned beforehand, in the Bubba Robson area, Lauren Robert, came with a lot of hype. Some would say he didn't deliver as much as he could. How good was he, and why do you think he didn't quite live up to the heights?
Well, I think in the North East he did. There's a lot of expectation. I tell you, if you get a chance, follow him on Instagram. When I come back in another life, I want to be Lauren Robert, because he either plays golf, smokes cigars, or drinks, or eats. So he does that on a constant daily basis in different parts of the world. So when you come back being reincarnated, come back as Lauren Robert, because he has a life. Or he's sometimes dancing on the balcony somewhere. But I mean, wonderful technique, had a great left foot. One of the superstars with free kicks, some of his goals that he took. Yeah. Being the French temperament sometimes, I'll tell you a quick story. We had a defender called Andy Griffin, who come from Stoke, a young boy, loved to tackle, was very aggressive, good player, very pacey going forward, but had an edge to him. So we're having a little five-a-side, and Lauren Bird's come in, and like you said, the big price tags come in, and he's strolling around, got the hoodie up, and it's a bit chilly up there, so he's got every layer of clothing going on, gloves, the whole lot. So he's playing, and boys being boys, you leave the ball a little bit short, Griff's gone flying into it. So Laurent's in the French, exactly. But me and Speedo and Rob, we're laughing because we know what's coming. And Bobby made out he's on the phone and walked out. Speedo, we got to let it ride. So let it go. So again, goes flying in. Rob has kicked the ball. Hey, speaking, it's kicking the ball away. This is it. Griff doesn't really understand French. He doesn't really understand English. So he's like, what's going on? And the next thing, another one goes. So Laurent pushes him, and there's a little scuffle that breaks out. And Griff, he's only 21, 22, but he can look after himself. So there's a few punches flying. So me and Speedo have gone running over. And we said, Laurent's got to get it. So we've given him the forearm smash. Both of us have got Laurent. He's gone flying. So we're making out to hold Griff back to say, and all we can see is Laurent on the floor holding his face, and he's a bit bloody, and this is his hand, and this is this. So he's rolling around on side, and then we've gone over to him going, you okay? You okay? He said, just calm down, kind of. And then after that, he was fine. Funny enough, it didn't cause a problem. He just trained, and again, a very, very good player. And as I said, from the outside, people may say, they wanted more, but he was excellent for his time in Newcastle that he played. Mm-hmm. He was a good fella. Once he got the forearm smash, he realised what it was. But yeah,
attitude adjuster.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's great because me and Speedo got him at the same time. I'd done him with the right, and Speedo was left-handed. So he got the double whammy as he started rocking around a little bit. But it's funny because we all went to Griff to stop him, and no one went. Laura was like, "What about me? I've just been hit in the face." Don't hit one of your teammates in training. It ain't going to happen here.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And your England caps. Was your first one was the infamous.
Yeah, don't bring that up.
the one where it got called off, but you had 2 other caps for England.
Yeah, again, when I started playing, and I touched on the point when I was like 13 at Watford, a guy called Tom Wally told me I was too small, never going to make it, and Frank Clark at Leyton Orient, 16, you're never going to make it. I wanted to play football because of playing for England, seeing Brian Robson score against France, the goal that he's got in the World Cup, and seeing, I was an Arsenal fan as well, seeing Alan Sunderland score against Man United, the 4-3, when he ran the length of the pitch. That's why I wanted to play football. I wanted to play for my country, to represent them, to play in a cup final, and I was lucky enough to do that. And when we had the Republic of Ireland and being in the squad with Terry Venables, probably about 8 or 9 times before they actually give you the chance to make your debut. You can have appearances, and at that time they did B games as well. Yeah. So we'd have 5 or 6 of them with the likes of Jamie Redknapp and Carragher. A lot of the younger ones would play in them games, and then the players that was on the fringe would play as well. So to go to Lansdowne Road and represent your country, but you could just sense in the air that it was a different game. There was a lot of build up, and obviously a lot of politics involved at the time. We'd gone over there in goodwill to play the game. The Irish had put the English fans in the upper tier of their main stadium, which in hindsight was obviously naive, but you think it's England fans, and within 23 minutes, 27 minutes, all hell broke loose. But even beforehand, when you're singing the national anthem, there was booing, there was this. It was just a real toxic atmosphere. And the Irish in Dublin are great. They was looking forward to the game. And, I won't say English fans because they wasn't. They were just people going out there to cause trouble. And that obviously my family, my mum, my dad, and my fiance, my wife at the time, my wife now was there, and it was quite scary. But the Irish was great. Right. The security guard, the police, they got the family inside, made sure they was all okay. Obviously, we got escorted off the field and changed. And then we had the Umbro Cup in the summer. I'd actually just signed for Newcastle that day, that Monday before we played against Sweden, which were 3-3. And then if I'm going to only have an England cap and it's going to be my last one, you play Brazil against Ronaldo at Wembley. Call it a day then. It don't come much better than English. If I'm gonna call it a day, that was it. And then Gary Neville come along. At the time, again, you talk about England fullbacks at the time. We certainly got abundance there. There was like myself, Rob Jones, Paul Parker was still playing. Gary Neville was coming into the equation. Obviously, Lee Dixon was there. David Barsley at QPR, they was doing well. Richard Hedshaw was coming through at Man City. There was about 8 or 9, good fullbacks at the time. And then obviously Gary Neville come along and did well. And then obviously getting in with Beckham and having a good understanding. And that was it. And I got called in a couple of squads afterwards with Glenn Hoddle and KK, but never managed to go on that. But I did what I needed to do, and obviously I'd love to have had more caps, and I'm still fit enough if Gareth needs anybody. It won't be very mobile. It won't be very mobile, because I'll be able to do a job.
Spray a ball.
You'll last the game.
I won't be doing the overlaps, but it's a great something, as a kid, non-league, to stand there and sing the national anthem was a big moment.
Big proud moment, definitely.
What the infamous 10 points? Could you put a finger on it now, after it's like been and gone, on what exactly happened?
What's that? What gone? Refresh my memory.
The Man United Newcastle, where you're like the 10 points in front.
It was actually 12. So if we want to,
it's trying to be nice.
But they had a game in hand, so really it's nice. When you looked at our squad, there was only Peter Beardsley that had ever won the Premier League, or at the time, or the Football League at the time. And as I said, a lot of our games was Sunday and Monday. I think when you look at a group, we was inexperienced, and as a coach, with KK, when it was going well. And Sir Alex had started the mind games, the famous line, "I'd love it if we beat you." And when he said about Stuart Pearce, the testimonial, they're not going to try. And then they just had a phenomenal run of chipping away. Our actual goal differential was the same as them. We defended well, but they just had a mental toughness to be a champion. And unfortunately, to the day I die, and every day you think about it, and not really for me, but for the club, when I see like Leicester, Blackburn, Liverpool being on the Premier League, we had the chance to do it. But I think it was momentum's a big thing. And we lost momentum. And the harder we tried, the worse it got. And Kevin started bringing Tino in, changing Peter Beardsley into the middle, putting Robley on the right. And we just lost our mojo. We just couldn't get hold of it. And they just, again, 1-0, come up to our place on a February, absolutely, battered them. Schmeichel was making save. Les had hit the crossbar, the post, goal, ball cleared off the line. Maybe at half time, whatever happens here, we don't get beat. KK said, "Go and show them again how good we are." We went up there, 78th minute, sucker punch, Phil Neville. I can remember it to the day I died. Phil Neville chips it in the back post, Cantona smashes it in the ground, 1-0, job done. We'd lost it then. And, as I said, it was It was tough because, as I said, we tried to push them all the way. And it's all ifs and buts, but you live and die by that. And, fans say they'd rather have had that time, our style of football. I wouldn't have minded parking the bus for a couple of games and winning 1-0 and having a Premier League medal. It was what it was. And, would KK ever have changed it? No. He was never going to change his philosophy, his idea. Very similar to what Pep's done in the Champions League, changed things around, maybe overthought it. And unfortunately, momentum's a big thing. You know that. I think, in the game, all of a sudden you're walking on air. The first 6 months, we couldn't do anything wrong. And then all of a sudden, we're trying to do the same things. We're getting caught out. Decision goes against us. They score. Nottingham Forest, Ian Wones scores a worldie. All of a sudden, the whole world's against you. So, but we give it everything, and unfortunately, we come short. We had a bloody good go trying to do it.
You certainly did, yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up.
And they're trying to recreate that now.
I'll get my own back about my earphones.
What time we landed anyway? What's happening?
You're going to need a lot more than that. Don't worry.
What's happening with the
dear. That's brilliant.
When's the duty free coming round as well? You
see a trolley coming around in a sec.
Yeah.
I'm showing my age now. You don't have duty free there, don't you, on players? I'm really showing.
No, we don't.
No. I always watch these back normally afterwards, but I ain't watching this one.
Watch it, Steve. It's fucking hilarious.
I know.
Who
was the best player you played against?
Week in,
Ronaldo,
week out would obviously be, Ronaldo would come to mind. Week in, week out would be Ryan Giggs. He was a phenomenal player, and the way I played, I always thought, well, he's good going that way. What's he like going the other way? And he was just as good bloody defending as he was going forward. So, he was and playing in a phenomenal team. That team that won the treble, that was winning trophy after trophy. When you look at Beckham, Scholes, Keane, and him as a midfield. Harry Kewell, when he first came on at the scene, at Leeds with their team as well, he was a handful. But you like playing against him. But we played against Juventus with Lippi's team. And Del Piero, but Zidane by far was
my favourite player.
Zidane. Yeah, he was. Talking about men against boys, there was me, Rob Lee, and Gary trying to get a ball off of him. We couldn't get anywhere near him. He did a pirouette, spread it out, and sprayed it 30 yards with his left foot, about an inch off the ground. He was a phenomenal player. One also that I will say, and it shouldn't do because he's such a great player and a wonderful person, Thierry Henry. Because I played against him when he was at Monaco. And he was, again, electric there. And then when he came to Arsenal in that team, and, he knew me when we played at Monaco, and he would call me Mr. Newcastle, probably because he didn't know my name. So I just said, but we would play against, and Terry would always love to drift out to Arsenal's left-hand side, my right-hand side. And I'd always say to him, I said, listen, my wife and kids are here, my mum. Do you mind going on the other side? No problem, Mr. Newcastle. To go and play against him. And when you had him and Bergkamp, and then Petit, Vieira, Perez, and Freddie, them type of players. So them teams playing against them. But Zidane is another level.
Another level.
It's another level from that. So he would be the one. Gaza playing with Euro '96. Was one of arguably him and Peter Beardsley is the best players I played with. But there's no doubt. But Giggs would be there because of just the team and how he played, and he was as quick with the ball as without the ball. Most players are quicker just running without the ball. He was just as quick. But I would just used to show him inside to Rob Lee and say, "Fucking help us out, will you? Just come across and help us out." But phenomenal player. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wow. Was you in that game where Bergkamp scored that goal?
I just left.
David Zach's goal.
And we phoned Nicholas up afterwards, me and Rob Lee. We just got the derby. And we said, Nicholas, you're right. We were trying to get you out the ground. He turned around and he went, you know what his opening line was? He never meant it. I went,
yeah.
You're right. He didn't. He didn't mean it. He didn't mean to make me look so stupid.
And I bet none of you lot were nice to him either. It weren't. It's like,
oh no,
absolutely.
I'll tell you a quick story against Dennis Bergkamp, who I think arguably one of the best top 5 players in the Premier League. We was playing at Highbury, and do you remember the little dugouts that was quite close together, the white little boxes, really little glass metal boxes. So we're having a corner, Newcastle against him, and Bergkamp stayed up. He was always their outlet if it come to him. So it's got David Seaman's punched it out. It's got a million miles up in the air. So I'm running towards Dennis Bergkamp right in front of he's let it bounce and right in front of the dugout. So I think I'm got it. If he turns, I've got a chance of either winning the ball, I'll snap him in half, or get a good tackle. Outside of his left foot, while the ball's still in the air, he's dinked it round with his left foot as on the half volley. It's gone straight through my legs. Now I'm staring at Arsene Wenger and Pat Rice. And I went, he's fucking good, isn't he? My legs wide open, looking at him. The only saving grace, he's the only one that's done it. But I looked at Pat and I went, he's fucking good, isn't he? And off we went. So,
technically one of the best.
And he could put his foot in, and he could play as well. He
had a bit about him and all,
He did. Let's get on to Newcastle now. So, the big takeover. Obviously, you must have been happy about the Saudis coming in and taking over and investing some real money into the club. But the important things now that they can stay up. Do you think Eddie Howe's the right man for the job, and do you think he's got all the tools to do that?
I think he's the right man for the job. You know, they did try and go for Umar Emery as well. So the level of coaches that they was looking at was high. If you remember a few years ago with Eddie, he was, being tipped for England and Arsenal. The next, taking over there to keep a team like Bournemouth in the Premier League 5 years that they couldn't build in the stadium. He's articulate. He speaks well. But talk is cheap, it's the business that you're in. But I do think he's the right man for the job. He speaks very well about the fans. The tools, I think you mentioned about he needs the tools now. The honeymoon for the new ownership is over. I mean, when they first come in to have 14 years of Mike Ashley and how that club had just been left to rot, really, and just survive and tick along was sad. And that's why I got involved with the Newcastle Trust with the fans. It looked weak and vulnerable. And I think you could tell by the way I'm speaking. When I was at Newcastle, it wasn't like that. It was vibrant. It was strong. It was positive. It was aggressive. It was in your face. And obviously going out there to try and win trophies and compete. And we never did that. So we've never said we want to win every trophy. And with the new ownership coming in and just being, transparent with the fans, speaking to them, giving them a little bit of respect, because that club is all about its fans. And I know a lot of clubs say that, but when you go into Newcastle, the first thing you see is a stadium. And that's the heartbeat of the city, and the heartbeat of that club is the fans. And the new owners have gone in there and said the right thing, even a silly thing. And I said it before, cleaning the windows, just coming in there, making it look respectable. Because I went there a couple of years ago and it was like a shop on the corner that was looking to rot away. So from that point of view, obviously the new owners have come in. Now that's gone though, they've got the result against Burnley. The new owners now have got the pressure's on a little bit. The fans are not demanding, but they're hoping for Jesse Lingard, a Trippier, Connor Cody. People that understand the Premier League and can keep us up. And then from that, you can build on maybe what you're going to get and what Man City have done, what Chelsea have done, what the other, wealthy owners have done. So it's a real difficult time. We're in a relegation battle, and even with them players, it's still going to be a challenge to stay up. But I do think there's enough hard work and commitment with Eddie and drive. I think he's that type of. I would like to play for Eddie. I think he comes across well. I think he's a man. Management's good. If you're honest, and again that word trust, he would put that in there. And now the owners have got to try and back him and stay up. And maybe that's not going to be good enough. But I just look at the other clubs that are down there. They haven't got the resources. So I'm just hoping. I've had a conversation with some people up there. They're not sure how much they're going to spend, and that worries me. Because you might have to overspend, which is, we all know about this transfer window. It's not the easiest one. And like you said, this is not an ownership group like Man City where they've got £23 billion pounds. We've got 300 billion, so we've got plenty to go around. So
bloody hell, just go and get anyone,
get everyone. So that's what as fans we're seeing. So now the investment's there from the ownership to try and do that. They've spoken really well. They've interacted with the area. They've invested in the women's game up there. They've invested in the city. They've invested in jobs. They've invested in the club, the training ground, the academy.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what we all know, it's got to be on the field. And we've got to start winning games. And sooner rather than later, you've got games out the way of Liverpool and Man City. I've always said if we've got a fighting chance, I think if we bring some players in, we've got a chance of staying up, and that will be a big ask because where they are.
What do you think they need? What position wise?
Oh, right the way through the team. I think a dominant centre half. Trippier would be great because he can play right back, left back, wing back. Talented player, England international. Connor Cody's a leader. Can play 3 at the back, can play 2. I like him because he's got a personality. You can see even with his social media when he's with England, even though he's not a starter,
he's a leader, isn't he?
He's a leader. He has a personality about him, and it's not just about him. Lingard, I think, he showed what he did at West Ham in a team that he can be a bit of a star. I think he can do that. There's no doubt, another centre forward because then, God forbid anything happens to Wilson. So to answer your question, probably about 5 or 6, to be honest with you, and probably 5 or 6 that can start, and then maybe you get 1 or 2 from maybe France or Spain that a little, rough diamonds that you need to bring on that might all of a sudden come in and get you a couple of goals here and there, a little bit of the unknown. But there's no doubt they need to strengthen right away around the team.
And that's not easy, is it? No, that's not easy in January. I mean, the owner can have a load of money and they can say the right things, and Eddie Howe wants to do the right things, but you still got to try and get the players to come to the club. Fans have got to recognise that sometimes that a player might want to go somewhere else, or there might be some.
I also think as well, money. Let's not be naive. People don't come to England for the food and the weather. They're coming there for the money. And, that's 100%. They want to be an exciting league. They want to be in the Premier League. So that's not naive to say, I love it when I hear foreign players say, it's my dream. I've always loved to play for Norwich.
Right.
Some of the money I want to play in the Premier League. Don't say it's always been my dream to wear this Liverpool shirt. It was always like a Bayern Munich fan or whatever. So but be transparent and understand that. And again, I've said, even if we sign these players now for a year, the chances are they're not going to be there for 2 or 3 years anyway. So it's a short-term fix, but the rewards of staying in is so much more because I'll go back to your question, Steve, when you said, I think if we'd won the league, we would have pushed on and maybe won more like Chelsea did. Because we didn't win the league, we went backwards for 3 or 4 years. It took Bobby another 3 or 4 years. So if it happens that we go out and we're not in it, it could take another 2 or 3 years to get back to where we want to get to. Because if you think it's hard to sign players in the transfer window when you're in the Premier League, it's going to be even harder in the summer when you're in the Championship.
Definitely,
So that's another thing. So that's where you've got to weigh up the rewards of saying, well, if we're going deep now, we might be able to keep some of the money if we sell them in January, February next year and get rid of some of the players. But it's definitely a gamble worth taking.
It's tough.
Yeah, well, one of the problems that you have there is if you do go down, like you were saying there, like if the players that only want to play in the Prem are not going to come, then you have to focus your attention on who's the best outside the Prem. And then they're good enough to get you to the Prem. Now you have to go and get more players to get you further up the Premiership. So it'll be like 2 stages then. So you'll be taking yourself like 2 or 3 years, like you're saying. So yeah,
it's the same thing what happened with Rafa. Rafa went down. They had to get rid of some of their high-earning players. Wijnaldum went, people like that went, and then all of a sudden you're building up again. Getting John Joe Shelby. Then instead of got Wijnaldum that you had, now all of a sudden you got to start with John Joe Shelby and to build up from that. Where if you stayed up and you got Wijnaldum, you think, well, okay, I'm going to put another good player, another top player next to him, and then you can build from that a lot quicker. But fingers crossed, and players like that understand what Newcastle potentially could be. They go up to St James's Park, and the fans are great. They're fantastic.
Amazing.
52,000 people. But you've only noticed the fans in 14 years of doom and gloom. You know, I would love them to experience what I had for 8 years when we had 8 years of it, like it was against Burnley. You know, I remember beating Watford and Bradford 1-0. Instead of doing a lap of honour against Burnley, we got booed off because that's the expectation.
It wasn't enough. You wanted more. Yeah,
they wanted more than that. So but it's going to be a really important next 5 or 6 weeks for Newcastle. Definitely.
Yeah.
Who of the current crop would you definitely be keeping?
I think there's some good players there. I think St. Max is a player. Wilson's a player. I think Jamal at the back. I think he's going through a tough time at the moment, but I think he's got the caliber of being a good player. Almiron can play. I think you're going to have to. But say you have them 4 players, and you add the players that I've said, and then the players that are starting now on the bench. You think that squad's not bad? Listen, can that squad compete with? I'm not even going to go with Liverpool and Man City. Can they compete with the other teams like a Leicester? No, we're still away from that. But you've got a chance of competing. Look what David Moyes done at West Ham. Look what Brendan done with Leicester last season. When Leicester had confidence, there was a top team. Now they've lost a little bit of confidence. They're like mid-table. So it's look what Steven Gerrard's done at Aston Villa. He's gone in there, grabbed the club and the players around the scruff of the neck, and all of a sudden they're winning games. And add them players to what you already got. But to answer your question, there's some good players there. Do we need to spend? Of course we do.
Yeah. Do you think like what they with Steve Bruce? Do you think the Newcastle fans were fair with what they said about Steve Bruce? I mean, probably not in the words, but
there was unfair, Steve, in the personal abuse and the family. And I totally said that to the fans. They're out of order, and people that done that. I would say we're all on social media, and these people that say what they say, they you'd see them face to face. They wouldn't say a word, but that type of thing was that. My problem was when we went to Sheffield United, who hadn't won a game. I think there was 7 or 8 games in, and we allowed Sheffield United to dictate, to play at their pace, to get confidence. They ended up beating us. So the criticism about his style of football, and then some of the things he would. I mean, he's from the North East as well, Steve. He understands what the club's about. But to say we're ticking along, it's just about surviving. Even if that is your brief as a manager, don't say it. I mean, I would say, I'm not saying you do a sales pitch and you're saying, "Oh, we're going to compete." No, we're going to do the best we can. Every time we played against someone, it was like, "Well, they're better than us." If I was a player in the chat, I'm thinking, "Well, you don't really give us a lot of credit. You're playing 11 behind the ball. We're going to play in our own half and try and get a free kick, try and get a breakaway goal, rather than trying to play and be on the front foot and try and win a game. And you might end up losing games, but the chances, if you're being a bit more positive, you win games. But listen, herersay, the 2 years I was there, we stayed in the Premier League. I did my job. Listen, and as a player, I played against Steve, and he was the leader of men. I spoke about that team, Sir Alex Ferguson. Steve Bruce was the leader of that group. He was the captain with Pallister, Schmeichel, Keane, Ince, Cantona, Hughes, but it was always Steve. Steve was the captain. He'd probably punch me straight on the nose if he sees me. But I was only saying what I felt. Nothing personal against him. I just felt that. Come on, Steve, be the person that I know you are. But obviously, it was wrong with the fans. So, and also you throw on the back of 14 years of Mike Ashley and the toxic atmosphere you had at that club. Steve was getting it. Unfortunately, if he wasn't going to be a player, Ashley was never there. So Steve was getting it.
He was going to get it.
Steve was, he'd be in the media and come up and do his press conference.
I think you summed it up perfectly when you said that it used to be a vibrant club. It was almost just like the black and white had merged. It was grey in Newcastle in the end. By the end of Mark Ashley's reign.
Did you make that up yourself?
Do you know what? Just on the spot. Just on the spot. On the spot. I was like,
that's magnificent. I've never heard that one before. I was just thinking the same.
Do you know what? I knew it was good because Nathan was going.
I'm gonna write
that down.
Right, I got it.
Just give it credit. Speak to my agent. All right. Before we go, I want to ask you the Tamiri Ketsby celebration. What was when you saw it? what was your feeling amongst the team? Was it him as a player? Was it no surprise?
He's finished writing that down.
He's still writing that down. He wants the tone. How did he say it? You can go back and press record.
He's gone.
He's got to use it now, isn't he? He's gone to use it now.
Where's he gone?
Oh, he's back.
He must have pressed the wrong button.
I thought he was just about to go on live on air in America and use my line there.
Yeah, that's what he's done. That's what he's done.
Social media. The Toon Army. But no, you're right. It was. I mean, Alan Shearer said it perfectly. It just had no soul. It had nothing there. It was just a shell of what it should be. But I like Grey. I prefer Grey than actually no soul. So you got my card there.
There we go. You're all free to use it. Just put my name underneath it. I was just saying before we go, the Tamiri Ketsbaya celebration, the crazy kick of the billboards. What was your feeling at the time as a player there?
I can hilarious. Tamiri was a lovely man, and he's a coach as well now. He was a hot-headed player. You know, even when you're talking to him about his kids and that, he went off and won. It's like they do this, they do this. Like, nothing was like, it was either all in or out. And he'd found it really tough with Kenny Dalglish not playing regular, and he scored the goal. I mean, he scored a goal against Bolton. It's not exactly like, and he went ballistic because there was a lot of energy and frustration that had come out. The bravest one as well, which was great, Pastoni, was trying to calm him down. Now, Pastoni wouldn't go anywhere near him. He was like, don't hit my face, whatever happens. I've been doing my hair and everything. So we come in after the game, and obviously we've won, and we try to. But if you ever watch the video, normally when you throw your shirt into the fans, they keep it, don't they?
Yeah.
Someone got it and threw it back at him.
And insult to injury.
He couldn't get his boots off. He tied him too much. So when we come in, me and John Bert trying to calm Tamiri down, and in the end, I said to Bez, just leave him. He's going. Kenny, being Kenny, went into his office and locked it, and Tamiri's going, the bastard, this, and he's swearing, and Jordan's going crazy. Kenny was like looking, put his head out. Is he calmed down yet? Is he calm down? Stay in there, give it another 5 minutes, and then once it got down, and then Kenny come out, he went, well done, Tamiri, great goal getting you bastard, and this, and then it all calmed down there. But yeah, when he was doing it, the one person who wasn't as brave as a lion to calm him down was Pastoni. He'd gone over there. He was like, don't touch my face, not my face.
Yeah, he was a pretty boy.
Yeah, he was a pretty boy. And he knew it.
All right.
Brilliant.
Warren, thank you very much
wonderful.
for coming on tonight. It was quality. Brilliant.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure, gentlemen. It was fun. And entertaining and educational as well.
Educational. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to educate. Yeah,
we're on the head on.
If you have a look at it, there's nothing on there.
Hey, get out of it. Because I know you're just going to watch the pod back. Yeah. You wrote down the time I said it. That's what it was.
Yeah, I've got the airline pilot and Grey.
You look back at it. I do not know what I was writing down there. You don't have a clue.
You learn something new every day.
All right.
Please, do we have to build up now? Are we landing now?
We are.
I'll tell everybody, in private chat, he's just texted me and said that he wants a pair of these, and I've got to send him to the post.
Yeah, because I'm going to the 1975 disco party. I've got some hot pants to wear and some leggings.
Oh my gosh! I just bloody eaten.
I killed you.
Right.
Done.
Thank you very much for everybody who's watched tonight. Please press that like and subscribe.
Has anyone watched?
I'm sure there is someone. If not, it'll be me and Steve watching it back later on.
That'd be true.
My kids before they go to bed, they love it. Send them straight on to sleep.
There we go. All right. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Again, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Warren.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Brilliant.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Thank you very much for joining us,
Merry Christmas,
Steve. And thank you very much for joining us, Nathan.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Peace out, people. Stay safe and wash your hands.